What is up, denizens of the interwebs? It's Arthur Chas here coming at you with another video, and this time we're talking about the controversial release trailer for Subnautica 2. Now, Subnautica is one of my all-time favorite survival games, and I absolutely love the game for its crafting, its world building, its open sea environment, the fish design, and just so much more. The atmosphere and the music design in that game is top-notch. And I even have an egregious almost 200 hours on the first game, as you can see right here, with it being at 192.8 hours. In fact, Subnautica was the very first game that I'd ever bought for Steam, back when it was only $15 in pre-production. Now, I see a lot of people absolutely freaking out over the character design of this trailer, and I have some thoughts on it, so I think I'm going to elaborate some, because it's clear that a lot of the people talking about it haven't played Subnautica, and this isn't a dig at any of them, because I respect these people immensely. All I'm trying to do is give you more information and expand more. And in doing so and trying to expand more, I discovered a few things on both Unknown Worlds, the developer behind Subnautica's website, and the main consultancy group that they're using, which isn't a DEI explicit consultancy group, but they have some stuff on their website that has cause to raise some eyebrows. So, like, subscribe, and let's get into all of this. So the very crux of the nature is coming with the character development, with this one person over here on Twitter from Torch Games. Let's help Subnautica 2 turn a profit. Step 1, remove these characters, no one wants to play as them. Step 2, replace them with 3, enjoy the profits. And I agree. The problem isn't diversity. I think the biggest issue is if we actually have to play as these characters, because as it has been announced, Subnautica 2 will be a 4-person multiplayer. And honestly, I would much prefer to be able to pick from a slew of characters than to be assigned a character at random or based on player order. With Learning the Law also saying, here's your Subnautica 2 modern audience as approved. What are you doing underwater, Miles Morales? Don't you have a city to save? Because of course he's got the modernity haircut, and he just has the very bland, soy, black, gay look. As we see in this tweet, literally every single modern black character has the exact same haircut. But something I thought was incredibly important to point out was the fact that while those character designs are terrible, this is what you played in the first game, which came out 10 years ago. This character design was decided 10 years ago. It's hideous. Your face is literally the shape of a tennis shoe. But you know what? This was before wokeism was starting to creep their way into most indie games, and this is an indie title. Now, I will say that Below Zero was really bad. It started as a pretty good game in early development, which I also bought in early development, but it was bad enough that I didn't put that many hours into it after the game got significant development, especially when they changed the PA voice. So a PA, personal assistant, is a iPad basically you carry around that contains all the data, and it talks to you to give you information. In the first game, you play as a voiceless character. The PA is the only system that talks to you, and it talks in a normal pseudo-British accent. It's very easy to understand. In Below Zero, you play as a black lesbian who's looking for her sister, and the PA has a very thick African accent, even though your character does not have that much of an accent. I don't remember what the accent is, but it is not an African accent, making it so that it's very hard to understand the PA, which is kind of counterproductive when the PA is what's giving you your quests and is giving you information about the world. And I had an issue with this well before I learned what DEI and forced diversity was, just because of the fact that it didn't fit and it made the game actively harder to understand. Although I did go through the credits of Subnautica Below Zero and I didn't find anything too oppositional. But the whole point of this is, the main protagonist's design, I don't think it's necessarily a modern audience issue because the main protagonist of Subnautica has always been ugly. Now, of course, that's not to say I wouldn't prefer this. And before anyone throws a fit, no, I'm not saying I prefer this because they're white. I prefer this because they look like attractive beings. I would actually prefer it if the characters are still stylized, but stylized in such a way that, first of all, you get to choose what your character looks like. So, because you people claim diversity and representation is so important, why is it that representation is only important if you can't choose your character? If representation and needing to be seen was so important, the whole thing would be focused on developing your own character. So no, it has nothing to do with the fact that they're white. This has to do with the fact that she looks like a fucking fish. So I just want to move that out of the way. The fact of the matter isn't that the characters are ugly. That's not a concern. But a lot of people think it's a concern given the fact that we've been so inundated with modern audience chins, like this protagonist from Star Wars Outlaws. And there's a bit of similarity. She has a very modern audience chin in this picture. Now, I will also admit there is a bit of a bad picture. The picture where she's front-facing, she looks like a very stylized, slightly attractive woman. But she's still very ugly. She has a bit more attractiveness. Their jaw looks better in the front-facing picture. Now, I'm interested with some of this information that Grumps has given us. The image from the left is from Subnautica 2. I know Charlie, the founder of the studio. For many fruitless years, he passionately chased his indie dreams until he finally made it. Had much respect for the tenacity. But then he turned coward and fired his excellent sound designer and composer, Simon, for posting an attack helicopter meme. He was so afraid of the cancel culture crowd. I lost all respect for him when he did that. I won't be buying Subnautica 2. And that's honestly really disheartening to hear that that's what happened to the sound designer, because Subnautica 1 had excellent sound design, but Subnautica 2 significantly fell through the floor in regards to it. And the music even was significantly worse. I have a playlist of soundtrack music. Subnautica 1's on there. Subnautica Below Zero is not. Now, this is some fun news. According to Grum's plot twist, I hired Simon to work on my sounds as a contractor right away. He's been great, and I love to hear that. I guess now I cannot wait for Grum's next project. Now, I wish I was a lot better at remembering to bookmark things, because there were a whole bunch of really good tweets, but I no longer remember who said them or where they were from or how long ago, so it's hard to refine tweets. So I need to get better at bookmarking for my videos. But what exactly is it that I found a bunch of concern of on the Unknown Worlds website? Well, for the most part, the website is pretty clean. It's a very normal website for a video game. There's no mention of consultancy groups, with the exception of one who isn't explicitly a consultancy group. So the only 2 points of the website that I had found that had any kind of cause of concern was first under the careers page, all the way at the very bottom. So initially, there's a bit of a positive thing down in the careers section where they say who you are. Our ideal candidate is passionate, self-motivated, versatile, and eager to grow. We are looking for developers who are excited to be involved in their projects and take personal ownership in their work. At Unknown Worlds, everyone is encouraged to collaborate on all aspects of games we are creating. All our team members have a strong passion for their craft and love making games. And while that's all nice and good and should be how game development should be, going down here to the diversity and inclusion section immediately underneath it, at Unknown Worlds, we pride ourselves on being a globally based and represented team. As such, we're committed to diversity as one of our core values. However, we also have the responsibility to ensure that our values translate into the concrete actions. What games we make, how we make them, and how we hire our people. We pledge to carry out this effort in earnest, with an open mind and with the intention to improve this industry for everyone. We're dedicated to working towards that goal in many ways and improve some things we're already doing. We believe this is long overdue and will ultimately broaden our perspective and creativity of our games. We understand that this means an ongoing commitment, education, discussion, and outside advice where necessary. And with that last piece of advice there, the advice where necessary, means that they're definitely going to be the kind of people who will be strong-armed by companies like Sweet Baby Inc. or Black Girl Gamers. Down here in the organizations we support, they also mention that they work for Action Against Hunger, San Francisco Main Food Bank, NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, which is a bogus group creating racism, claiming they're fighting it, Game Devs of Color Expo, and then National Center for Transgender Equality. Though it is kind of funny to me that they mention how their team is from all over the world when their team is explicitly not in Russia, explicitly doesn't have anyone from Russia, from Africa, or from Northeastern Asia, with no one in Japan, China, or any of those countries in that giant region. Only parts of the world that isn't America is Europe, and a couple places in Brazil, and another place in South America, a single place in Australia, and a few other places. But nothing, this isn't a very particularly diverse representation of where their team is. Or at the very least, it's not nearly as diverse as they claim it is. Now, the second concerning part about their website is all the way down here in the very bottom. There's no other way to get to it other than down here, which refers to their video policy, which specifically states that you are free to create videos using recordings of Unknown Worlds UWE games, subject to the rules and caveats on this page. This includes and is not limited to Let's Plays and Shoutcast style videos. You can post these videos wherever you want. Now, the important rules on using Unknown Worlds games and videos: you may not charge for access to the video. The video must not be racist, sexist, obscene, homophobic, or otherwise substantially offensive. You may not attribute the work of Unknown Worlds to you or anyone else but us. Do not use the Unknown Worlds logo without first asking permission. You may not license video content containing recordings of Unknown Worlds games, except in the case of YouTube, Twitch, and similar partner programs, or unless you ask our permission first. Now, that one where the video must not be racist, sexist, obscene, homophobic, or otherwise substantially offensive, especially with that last line, who's to decide whether or not you declare it as such? Because that must mean that you are the one who's putting that out there. And the fact that you're controlling the kinds of videos people are making in regards to your videos to such a degree is absolutely absurd and absolutely obscene. There's a similar line in their community tab. We like to play games with people we like. We also like polite people who can have rational discussion about a wide range of subjects. As such, we've established the following guidelines when posting on our forums and acting in our community. Please behave polite at all times. That means refraining from swearing and disrespectful comments, racist, homophobic, religious, etc. Our admins, whom are elected from the community, reserve the right to temporarily restrict or ban any people, accounts, or IP addresses in response to behavior that violates these rules. However, our admins shall be gentle and reasonable and will use their discretion. So both those things, the only things they don't want is things that could be considered partially political in any way, shape, or form, or in other words, are things that do not equate to their political beliefs. Now, the other big piece of concern that I found regarding a consultancy group that seems to work within Unknown Worlds was down here in their About page at the very bottom during their Our History timeline, where they specify in 2021 they joined a group referred to as Krafton. Now, I had never heard of this group, so of course I did what any rational person would do, and I looked them up. And it looks like Krafton is a consultancy organization that mostly focuses on helping game studios develop the world around their IP and expand their IP to new things. I haven't heard of most of the games they've worked on, but the ones I have are the Callisto Protocol and PUBG Battlegrounds. So they don't have a whole lot of credits, at least publicly, and I do know that the Callisto Protocol was flamed for being a bit of a woke game with a character of the modernity gen. So I scoured their website for any kind of information I could find. I have no idea what I'm doing, so hopefully I found everything, and hopefully my information is accurate because I'm pulling it straight from their website. The first thing I'm drawing from is under the Krafton story page, under the About right here, where they mention that they are stronger together and believe in leveraging our multicultural team to bring their own beliefs, ideas, and experience to Krafton to resolve any challenge as one. Which could be nothing, but there's just some things about the corporate speak that they use that is all a little bit of a concern to me. Also, the website is quite frustrating because of the way that it unfolds as you go and swipe over things means it is literally impossible to annotate. There's another point made on the website that I wanted to bring up, but I seem to have lost where it was hidden, so I apologize for not being able to show it on screen. But in an area, they mentioned specifically that this group is a horizontally cultured group. And for those who don't know what that means, horizontal and vertical are two different power structures that decide where the employees are in relation to the bosses. In a vertical culture, it's very literally vertical. The employees are down at the bottom, bosses are up here at the top, and it's very hard to move up. In a horizontal culture, everyone's in an equal plane, so new employees are at the same level of status and respect as the bosses are, which is a very American and very far-left ideology, and that's basically what allowed for companies like Ubisoft to be overly inundated with these activist people who force a toxic positivity environment where no one can say no to anything, because then you might come off as being rude to those around you. Now, the core of a lot of the concern came from over in the top part, in the under the IR section, where they have governance listings. Now, most of this is actually just business stuff, but there's one message down here under ESG Committee, held by Brandon Yoon, oversees and manages companies' ESG initiatives and strategies to ensure sustainable management practices. Then through going over here to the regulations tab, I managed to find a whole list of their governance requirements. Most of this is just corporate speak, talking about things, how the board moves, how different groups are working together with it, how people are compensated for committee regulations, and yada yada, a bunch of corporate speech. Take it down here to the ESG committee regulations. Most of this is just setting up what the goals of it are and setting a bunch of terms, but down here it mentions a bunch of stuff. For instance, the fact that the corporation has a committee that shall oversee and manage the company's initiatives and strategies ensuring sustainable management practices in the areas of environmental, social, and governance, ESG, to enhance shareholder value. It's a bit of an oxymoron because ESG doesn't increase shareholder value whatsoever. They then mention that the committee shall consist of 3 or more directors, and a majority of the members must be outside directors, and that the chairman of the committee shall be appointed from among the outside directors. And there are a handful of matters that are delegated out to the committee. Preliminary examination and review of establishing the overall ESG strategy, direction, and mid to long-term goals. Review of the fundamental principles and policies for ESG management. Other matters delegated to committee by the board of directors or deemed necessary by the committee. The matters that shall be reported to the committee are as follows: plans and performance of ESG management activity, including evaluation of results, and significant issues related to ESG risks that have arisen and responses taken, and other matters that need to be reported. And while I wasn't able to find any specific ESG actions that this company, that Krafton had decided to make, I did find this Morningstar Sustainalytics website that had an ESG risk rating for Krafton, putting them at an 18.0, which is a low risk group, though a little close to reaching medium risk. With them saying that in terms of exposure refers to the extent to which a company is exposed to different material ESG issues. Our exposure score takes into consideration sub-industry and company-specific factors, such as business model, claiming that theirs is low, and management, which refers to how well a company is managing its relevant ESG issues. Our management score assesses the robustness of a company's ESG programs, practices, and policies, and that's at average. And in comparison to several other gaming industries, they're rated worse than Bandai Namco, but better than Konami and Capcom. with all three of those companies having very strong commitments to pushing ESG and DEI-based initiatives currently. So that means that while they don't have a ton of it on their website, that clearly means it's there and something to be concerned about. The next big important area is down here at the very bottom of that same page, their code of conduct. Once again, most of the early parts are a whole lot of nothing, with the only thing here being that it's a promise between a company and its employees in the fulfillment of our internal and external duties. That latter part is what brings up concern. What exactly are they deeming external duties? Are they including things like managing and protecting the environment, using false sciences to push that, or is it something more important and real? The first section is Chapter 1, promises to fans that say that they provide fans with good games and services. Talking about how the whole thing is made with craftsmanship, a healthy game, which are games that do not promote gambling, obscenity, discrimination, or hatred, as well as the impact that they can have on the society. Since it's not so easy to differentiate such elements from art, the creative output that we are making could lie in the boundaries. Therefore, if there are concerns that an element of our games could be mistaken as promoting gambling, obscenity, discrimination, or hatred, we need to get our colleagues' opinions and also pay attention to see if they go against any applicable laws or social norms. Which is the entire BlackRock speech.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
The next point worth mentioning is down here in their promise to colleagues. Create a healthy work environment based on diversity. Krafton is a global company. Our colleagues have diverse backgrounds and work in diverse regions. Such diversity is the driving force behind enriching our content, thereby keeping us going the right way, the Krafton way. In order for members from diverse backgrounds to work together, we need to understand our differences and have mutual respect for one another in a healthy work environment that promotes diversity. We will work as one team to pursue our dream, with the next section being respect for diversity and anti-discrimination. We should have mutual respect for each other's cultural, religious, and political diversity. Discrimination based on race, sex, age, religion, disability, or political affiliation must not be tolerated. Now the question is, hypocrisy of inclusion, where when you include people, you have to exclude those who make it not safe. So is this inclusion through exclusion, or is this legitimate inclusion? The only other thing that's worth mentioning is down here at the bottom, Chapter 6, Promise to the Community, where they say under their social responsibility, since our games, services, and various activities are part of society, we believe that by connecting and positively impacting many people, we are capable of taking a key role in building a better society. Therefore, while working towards our vision, we will take upon ourselves the great responsibility of addressing various social issues such as human rights, education, inequality, and the environment. We promise that we will think over our social values and sustainable future, pursue diversity and inclusive thinking, and faithfully fulfill our social responsibilities. Once again, forcing change. By forcing their beliefs into society and their games to force change amongst the people as a whole. This is a point of absolute concern and should not be taken too lightly. And it's something that I and many other people are highly concerned about, as is being done with most games, and this is just another instance of it being done. The rest of the website doesn't mention too much. They do mention this thing down here called the Krafton Jungle, which is a training organization to help new developers push through until the end and get into the business of developing video games. Now, thankfully, there is no mention of any kind of discriminatory hiring practices, just that they're looking for people 22 to 32 who dream of a career in software development with a focus on those with STEM education and the capacity for logical thinking. There is no DEI-based language in here whatsoever that I could find, and thankfully, I'm not missing anything, and hopefully it stays that way, unlike Ubisoft, which is absolutely all about discrimination. There's also this mention down here of their AI use under what they call ethical AI use, since they have an AI that's being used to help develop their research and their game industries, where they claim that they are actively responding to AI ethical issues, ensuring our technology creates social value and achieves sustainable development, which is once again the same thing I've been talking about. It's forcing change. It is forcing behavior through change, if that's what they mean. Because this could be just like Google Gemini or ChatGPT, where they will refuse to show you historically accurate pictures of people and will frequently blackwash members of history and lie to you about how history was set up, as well as telling social lies that encourage an altered and false view of reality. Now, of course, that could not actually be there, and I could be reading into it, but based on the language of this entire website, I am forced to believe that this is in here, and that is the case. So if I didn't make it clear earlier, I love Subnautica, and this is all just a whole bunch of concern that I really hope is unfounded, unwarranted, and unjustified, and doesn't appear in the game whatsoever. That's my hope, but I know better than to be so naive. And while I think the character customization issue is a bit of a misnomer and something that a lot of people aren't seeing for what it actually is, which is that this company has always sucked at designing characters, it is still a valid point as a point of concern and a red flag as to the rest of the development, which is the only reason I'm even doing this deep dive, as this is my first time even attempting a deep dive. Hopefully I did well. You guys should let me know in the comments if you think I did a pretty good job on this deep dive, or what I could have done better to make it a better version of one. So hopefully this game is good, but it's impossible to say until we see more and hear more, or maybe learn that there actually are more groups weaseling their way into the game to force more change. But that's pretty much what I've got, so I will see you guys on the next one.